Good morning, friends. Theosophia, also known as God wisdom or wisdom of the ages, ever is and does not change. The message of Theosophy is embedded in the laws of nature and is brought out from time to time as conditions permit. The modern theosophical movement was brought to us by H.P. Blavatsky, also known as the Messenger of the Masters of Wisdom. William Q. Judge steadfastly stood beside the messenger. He provided insights into the message that are particularly helpful to the Western mind. Robert Crosby established the United Lodge of Theosophists with a group of folks in 1909 to return to the message in its pure form as presented by HPB and William Q. Judge. This lodge in the D.C. metropolitan area is one of a worldwide network of ULTs. We gather here at Suite 230, 4865A Cordell Avenue, Bethesda, Maryland, every Sunday at 11 a.m. to discuss a particular topic. Every first and third Sunday of each month at 12:30 p.m. we are now reading and discussing the ocean of Theosophy. This being the first Sunday, we do have an afternoon meeting scheduled after this meeting, after a brief break. You can get more information through www.ultwashdc.org, or way better yet, by coming to our meetings, which are open to all. Each lodge being sustained by students to the degree they make commitments to themselves only. There are no admission charges, and the only tie that binds us is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching. As indicated in the complete declaration on the back of our program, the policy of this lodge is independent devotion to the cause of Theosophy. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of Theosophy and the exemplification in practice of those principles. Through a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. ULT welcomes to its association all who are in accord with its declared purposes. All are encouraged to test every part of the philosophy against their own intuition and the laws of nature, and in so doing, to make Theosophy a living power in themselves. May each of us study, help and teach others, and assimilate. The Theosophical movement has three interwoven objectives that focus on forming the nucleus of universal brotherhood of humanity. Our attention is drawn to the simultaneous evolution of man and nature. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What is our highest possible, what is the highest that we can come to know? What are the laws and processes of interaction between the universe and man? What about justice? Is it a cosmic fact? Is the individual man immortal? And if so, what should be the conscious purpose of selecting and weighing life's experiences? What goal can be reached? These are very lofty objectives, and we work on those every week and every day of our lives as we leave these meetings. Our reading today is from the Voice of the Silence, starting on page 1. These instructions are for those ignorant of the dangers of the lower ED. And in short, ED is the abnormal powers in man. He who would hear the voice of Nada, the soundless sound, and comprehend it, he has to learn the nature of dharana. Having become indifferent to objects of perception, the pupil must seek out the Raja of the senses, the thought producer. He who awakens illusion, the thought producer. The mind is the great slayer of the real. Let the disciple slay the slayer. For when he to himself his form appears unreal, as do on waking all the forms he sees in dreams, when he has ceased to hear the many, he may discern the one, the inner voice which kills the outer. Then only, not till then, shall he forsake the region of Asat, the false, to come unto the realm of Sat, the true. Before the soul can see, the harmony within must be attained, and fleshly eyes be rendered blind to all illusion. Before the soul can hear, the image, man, has to become as deaf to the roarings as to whispers, to cries of bellowing elephants as to the silvery buzzing of the golden firefly. Before the soul can comprehend and may remember, she must unto the silent speaker be united, just as the form to which the clay is modeled is first united with the potter's mind. For then the soul will hear and remember, and then to the inner ear will speak the voice of the silence. Next Sunday's talk is on the law of karma. And now for today's talk, which is on the third eye, part 2.
I started with very carefully.
Good morning, and welcome everyone. This is part 2. We had covered a lot of information during the first talk. Some of us were not there. Okay. There are 2 handouts that was given. One is the construction of the brain, because the pineal gland, or the third eye, is in the interbrain, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. And the other diagram is the evolution of the root races, and we said that all of our gifts, or the development of the inner man, goes with these races, and we will come back to it. Now, we started, we'll go just give you a synopsis, that we had said at the beginning of that talk that the spiritual and psychic involution proceeds on parallel lines with physical evolution. Because from that first chart, from this, we will see that this is coming into matter, and at the midpoint, equilibrium is reached between matter and mind, and then we go upwards. Good morning.
Good morning.
And we are what? The fifth subrace. We're the fifth subrace. Sorry, my writing. Subrace of the fifth root. Right? This is the fourth round. We're just putting this here. We're in the fourth round. So up to this point, we have gone through 3 rounds. We have passed the middle of the fourth, and we're going towards a spirituality. This is right? So we're kind of here. Why is it important to understand that? It is because each subrace develops a sense. Our vision, hearing, so forth is developed with each subrace. With each root race. And we said that the fifth one was permeability. So all this information you have to keep in the background in your mind. Okay? Yes? Seeing through this? Well, what are we? We had read from this little thing here. Let's see, where was that? It says right here. Well, I had read this to you in the first talk. Let us remember, she says, that the first race is shown in occult sciences as a spiritual within and ethereal without. Ethereal is what? Permeability, see-through. Yeah? The second, psycho-spiritual mentally and ethereal-physical bodily. We're still ethereal in the second round too. The third is still bereft of intellect in its beginning, is astrophysical in its body. We're developing an astral body, and lives an inner life in which the psycho-spiritual element is in no way interfered with as yet by the hardly nascent physiological senses. We're developing them, but remember, it takes millions and millions of years for the evolutionary process to proceed. We're not talking about thousands of years here. And its 2 front eyes look before them without seeing either past or future, but the third eye embraces eternity. This is from the Secret Doctrine, and we had read it to give you an idea of the developmental process that we go through, because everything develops pari passu with whatever is needed. We're told that nothing is created by nature. It has a specific reason why it is, because it is used for a specific purpose. So we were ethereal in the first and second races, in the third at the beginning. Then we started putting more coats of skin. We solidified, we said, in the third race, in the middle of it. The mind was lit by the Kumaras in that same second half of that third race. And not only that, but we also separated into separate sexes, male and female. We were hermaphrodite at first. These are such different ideologies presented in the Secret Doctrine that truly we have to read it over and over again to just get used to it, because nowhere did this student hear that term before, that we were hermaphrodite. But it stands to reason, because we have now reached this equilibrium between substance and mind. Yes?
Okay, so thank you so much for that. So the first and second root races were, in a sense, ethereal. In the beginning of the third root race, it was ethereal, but then it became astrophysical. And during the third root race, the mind lit, and the sexes
we separated
came about.
2 separate sexes.
Separated 2 sexes.
Not men and women, sexes. Male and female.
Male and
first.
female, right.
Correct.
And that's in the third root race.
Third race, yeah.
Third race.
Yeah, third race.
Thank you.
Correct. We are now in the fourth round. We're in the 5th subrace of the 5th root. This is the what age? Manasa period of our development.
So the 5th sub-race
best we
Is
are.
it not? This is just before the sixth root race?
Sub-race.
The sixth, alright, so we're gonna have 7 sub-races in the 5th
Round.
root race.
In this round,
In this round.
we're going to have 7. Then it's complete. The achievement or developmental achievement of that particular round is completed, and as high an achievement as possible has been reached. There will be a rest and so forth. Pralaya, and then we go. There's a short period of rest between the races. Climate change. These are not subjective. They're objective, because she told us in the 19th century, when she was on the scene, that there was some changes in the weather. And we see that that drastic change is increasing. This is not imaginary. We have to look around and perceive what is going on. It might take thousands of years. No one is saying when this is going to happen, but we read in the 4th message to the American Theosophists that was sent to the convention at that time, and there's a particular statement in there where it is said, you are the precursors of the 6th subrace. Well, if that is true, then we're already on the scene, so to speak. Correct?
Yes.
If we form that group of precursors to the 6th, then that process has already started, because it takes thousands of years for this to be completed, because we are told that up till 11,000 years BC, the Atlantean race was amongst us. So that process goes on, the new race comes about, and their characteristics are different. They're an anomaly at first, but then they become in majority, and so we will be the mongrels among them, and those suited to go on will go on, will interblend, our characteristics will change, slower than the newcomers, but nevertheless we will fit in, and we will live as long as we are able to. So this is not imaginary. If we accept it, then what is being given is the truth, or as close to the truth as it could be given out. It gives us a lot of ideas, ideology, and we can sit and meditate upon it, because the first student said, don't take anything at face value. Only do so until you can scrutinize it for yourself to see the validity of what is being said. Is it correct? Does it sit right with you? Then only then does it become a living power in ourselves. And this is the key to understanding theosophical concepts. This is not dogma. It is a living reality. So, but we need to understand what it is that we have gone through, and only a sketch of it is given. The details are not at all there. Only when we come to this globe, the fifth, what we are experiencing now is explained, but many things prior to that is not given. Only in a sketch form. Excuse me. Let's have a sip of water. So, we said permeability, and we are told that is not its correct term, but that when that actually exhibits itself, it will be given a name, just like eyesight, hearing, and so forth. Okay, now, and a bit of brain terminology. We had this diagram, we went over it a little bit last time, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and we said that the cerebellum, this is the cerebellum, okay? It's in charge of finely coordinated movement, cerebellum here. It's the oldest part of the brain. And then we said there's a spinal cord coming from the backbone all the way here, and there's a cranial opening here that allows it to go in, and it's continuous. In other words, our senses gather information. Information is fed in through the senses, and it goes to the brain. Brain is the coordinating center of the human economy. And we said the ventricle in front of that cerebellum is the fourth, and the spinal cord goes all the way. It's connected, as you can see. It does not stop anywhere. It goes all the way. This is the inner brain right here. And we said the purple is the pineal gland, and the yellow on the left-hand side is the pituitary. And we said the pituitary was the master gland of the hormonal balance in the body, and that the eyes develop from within without. In other words, they come out of the brain. It's not from inside, like in cuttlefish. It does not develop under the skin. It's actually pushed out from the brain. And that medulla is the automatic center, because sometimes through accidents people are in a coma, but they nevertheless automatically breathe because the brain stem has not been damaged, and that activity goes on. Okay? Breathing, heart rate, blood pressure is dependent on that. And we said that there are two sides to the brain. It's like this. I had a picture on the internet, but it's very small. It's like this. It's almost cut in half, as you can see. When you look at it from this view, it's not visible, but you look at it this way, it's visible. Oh, sorry. He says I'm not being heard, but you can hear me. Okay, so there is that fissure. So there's a left hemisphere, and there's a right hemisphere to the brain. Why is it important? Because they do not do the same thing. The left side is analytical. It says, I think I know. It analyzes everything from premises to the conclusion. But the right brain is the intuitive knowing in the human, and it says, I know, because it looks at what? Ideas directly. So you can see that the left and the right do not do exactly the same. They communicate through the corpus callosum, but they don't do the same thing. The left side beats 14 to 21 brain waves, and the other 3 to 13. Okay, that's all that. Yes.
So the left side is more cognitive, linear, rational, logical, analytical.
The other one is intuitive.
The left side is intuitive.
No, right side is intuitive.
I mean, right side is intuitive and would deal with things as a whole, opposed to analyzing them in parts, like the.
Well, you have to also know that what is in us also corresponds to the cosmos. Well, the intuitive is necessary, perhaps, to open us to larger viewpoint of things as they are, behind the scenes of the physical versus what? This is the only visible to the physical eye, but what is invisible is also there. I have an astral body which is electromagnetic. Another student gave a talk on the jiva and the astral body. You all were, I think, here. That is also physical because it has substance, but not the substance with solidity. It's permeable, it's see-through, it's electromagnetic, right? But nevertheless, I have it. It's one of my sheaths. So there is a visible and an invisible. Now, science does not accept these, but they talk about the ether in the universe. But that ether, the astral, is what supports the universe because it's a matrix. Okay? So this is a different viewpoint we're presenting here, but it's as close to the truth as it could be given out. And so at face value, we take it and then we scrutinize it. We have an analytical and an intuitive mind, and they work. So the alpha, as we said, is the right brain, and it beats lower, 3 to 13 brain waves, and the other one 14 to 21. The analytical side is faster. What do we do in meditation? We learn to be quiet, calm. What else? Satisfied. That well-beingness has to be there, that I am a complete being. I'm okay as I am. I am a whole. I don't need anything from anywhere else. I'm complete within myself. That has to be there also. It's a good way to start your meditation. Okay, so we talked about the involution, evolution. Now, we're told that the colossal statues that were left in India with 4 arms also shows that we had 4 arms, because men do not make things that are not likeness to themselves. That's what it reflects. It reflects who or what we are. So we had a 3rd eye, and we went also and showed what the physical science had said about it, that the Hatteria species that was discovered in New Zealand being the 3rd, it is applicable to the 3rd race, that certain fishes, reptiles, and is it chameleon or chameleon? I don't even know how to pronounce it. Chameleon, thank you. Has a 3rd eye, but it's opaque and it's under the skin. And we showed from that the scientists came to the conclusion that it was an eye because it has the similar characteristics of an eye, and it develops in a similar fashion. But we said in men, the eye deeply placed within the head, because it withdrew inside, covered by thick skin and muscles. True eyes that cannot see are found in certain animals, but not in us, because it's under the skin. Blind moles, field mice, blind snakes, and lizards all come from ancestors that were able to see, but because they live underground, they no longer have the necessity for eyes, so the eye does not function in them. In other words, what is functional in us is necessary, because nature produces it to provide us with what we need. And now, we had read a little bit. This is in Secret Doctrine, but it comes from Quain's Anatomy, as to how the vesicles and the optic thalami develop. I'm not going to go into it, because then we're going to be stuck where we stopped before. But we showed from what we had read, what was given, that the 3rd eye and the 2 optic thalami are generated sort of in a similar fashion, so that the dissectors, when you look at it, you wonder what its function is, because if you go and look at the terminology, as this student did, to see what they make of it, they figure out physiology quite well. But when it comes to unseen, unknown, intuitive knowledge, they're lacking there, because they don't believe in what they do not see. It's kind of very hard. And we were told that the optic thalami, the vesicles, all develop that way, and that if the parietal bone was removed, you would be able to see the pineal gland in there. It's there. Now,
What bone?
parietal, the side bone of the skull. It's right here. Okay. And the last bit that this student had read was Descartes. Do you remember what he had said? He lived in the 17th century, the French philosopher, and Descartes saw in the pineal gland the seat of the soul. Do you remember that bit? And we will read it. Although it is joined to every part of the body, he said, there is one special portion of it in which the soul exercises its functions more especially than in any other. and as neither the heart nor yet the brain could be that special locality, he concluded that it was that little gland tied to the brain, yet having an action independent of it, as it could easily be put into a kind of swinging motion by the animal spirits. And the animal spirits, we decided, was the nervous ether of Dr. Richardson and nerve aura of occultism, which crossed the cavities of the skull in every sense. That's what it was called in the 17th century. So here we have one philosopher, at least, who's giving us this information that the pineal gland is what it is. It gave us its synopsis. So then we go into discussing the scientific process, because as we explained in this evolutionary process, if the scientists were also aware as to how the evolution proceeds, and that involution occurs when we are on the descending arc, and that it is going to be on parallel lines on the ascending arc. What we did not have on one side, we will have it on the other side. Here we're spiritual, but we have descended all the way into materiality. Now we are going to slowly go towards a spirituality, and so we are going to etherealize. At the end of the chapter, we are told that here we are, if you look on your diagram, 5.5, we are between the first root race and the second root race. But all science does is conjecture, because they have nothing to base their theories upon. Because this is not visible science, it is invisible science. And then it is stated they will see their absurdity of blind force, mechanical processes of nature, because there isn't anything of that sort in nature, and in consequence, such knowledge given to us and what the pineal gland represents would become evident for them as well. So the odd eye in man atrophied. It's a proof, as in the lower animal, we said it's under the skin and it's opaque and does not function anymore because it has lost its function. It was an active organ at one time. As the spiritual element, here the spiritual element was the highest. We read it from the Secret Doctrine. We were ethereal, then we became astro-ethereal. In the third, we started putting coats over skin. We solidified. The mind was lit. We were hermaphrodite. We separated into separate sexes. So, as the cycle...
What about soda? You said that it's in front. We
No.
have also.
No, that's just a license that is taken. We had read it last time. Let me see where that was. It says, the third eye likewise getting gradually petrified. Remember we read it?
Yeah.
Soon disappeared and is now buried under the hair. However, during the activity of the inner man, during trances and spiritual visions, the eye swells and expands. The arhat sees and feels it and regulates his action accordingly. We had read that, right?
So we don't have anything here.
Never had it. It's always been in the back.
And why llamas make holes in the forehead?
I'm sorry?
Llamas.
Llamas?
Lama. Yeah, in Tibet. So some people want to open their sodai. They come to they go to travel to llamas, and they go to the monasteries. And in the monastery, they make a hole here.
What do you mean
With
make a
the-
hole? You mean they punch a
Just
hole?
physically, yeah, awful.
For what reason?
To open the third eye,
No.
and people start looking.
No, no, no. Wait,
It's
wait.
of course, it's I think barbarism, but they do that.
Okay, the third eye is in the inner brain. We just
yeah, I see it. Yeah,
okay.
But why is it they don't know or what?
Well,
Because
she
all
said
this-
we are told that the lamas are but just a little bit more learned than the people they teach. They do not know also, but we are told the Tibetan masters all teach the same philosophy. So this student is not familiar in what you're saying, but no, I can't even find my oh, here's the diagram.
Yeah.
Perhaps if there's another one, please pass one to Kathy. Here's the diagram, and we talked about all of the parts of it, and we went over it at the beginning of this lesson.
Yeah, this I understand. Yes.
Okay, here is the pineal gland. It was in the back of the head, but when the eye petrified, it got pulled into the skull. It's part of the inner brain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we are told what its function is.
Mm-hmm.
It has a swinging action. Descartes tells us, we read it. It swings, and since the heart or the brain is not that organ, he said the seat of the soul is the pineal gland.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a 17th century French philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 21st century. Okay,
And
so,
it's
and
still
here it
brown.
is. This is where it is. It's this purple gland. It's the pineal gland. And this one, the yellow one, we said, is the pituitary, the master gland hormone. They must have some kind of perhaps interactive process, but who knows at this stage. So
So
please,
we don't have anything in the forehead.
no, it's a license, she says, that it was taken for showing that there was a third eye, but that the third eye has never been in the front. It's always been in the back. And I had given the pages starting on page 294 of Secret Doctrine 2, and those statements come from the book. Okay, you can read it for yourselves.
What is the third eye used for?
Sorry?
What is the third eye used for?
You weren't here the first time. At the beginning, we were one-eyed, in other words. Okay, and that eye was the pineal gland. We produced a lot of proof for that from the Hateria and lizards and all kinds of stuff. But if I had to go through it again, we would not go anywhere. In fact, we haven't gone much further. But please read it in the Secret Doctrine. She provides the proof and shows by similarity how the animals also were one-eyed, but in them it's the physical eye. In men it was a spiritual eye, because we are one whole cycle ahead of the animal generation, all of the animals. In other words, we are one level higher than them because we have developed through evolution. And she shows that all of vertebrates were one-eyed. And later on, as the need became obvious, in other words, we became compound beings, the second eye was developed. So we became two-eyed. Sorry?
Is that where matter equals?
The equilibrium. This was trying to put things into perspective, that we're only in the fourth round, because this manasa is going to be fully developed and expressed in the fifth, without the material obscuring its function at all. So it gives you thought when you sit to see how that works in your own mind. Because if you go to the scientific, we need a brain, but what is that saying to us? If it's going to free itself from substance or matter and is going to express itself fully, then it's not going to be dependent on what? A brain function. So this student does not like to put it concretely, because you need to all think for yourselves to see where it takes you. Whether you come to the same conclusion or otherwise is dependent on yourselves. But it's food for thought, because she says the fifth is permeability, and at the end of the chapter she tells us that we're going to grow out of our coats of skin. Well, what does that mean? You have to kind of imagine it a little bit for yourselves. Okay, let's just finish this bit here that we did not have time to go into. And I'm going to read this again for those especially who were not here first. Let us remember that the first race is shown in occult sciences as a spiritual within and ethereal without. The second, psycho-spiritual mentally and ethero-physical bodily. The third was still bereft of intellect in its beginning. It was at its midpoint that the mind was lit, is astrophysical in its body. We're building an astral body and lives an inner life in which the psycho-spiritual element is in no way interfered with as yet by the hardly nascent physiological senses. We're developing them, but very slowly, and they're not interfering at all with our spiritual sight and senses. The two front eyes look before them without seeing either past or future, but the third eye embraces eternity. And here it says, this is the secret doctrine. In the beginning, every class and family of living species was hermaphrodite and objectively one-eyed. This student tries to repeat as best as I can what I have read. It's not mine. All of it comes from the literature. And the animal, whose form was as ethereal astrally as that of man, before the bodies of both began to evolve their coats of skin, to evolve from within without, the thick coating of physical substance or matter with its internal physiological mechanism, the third eye was primarily, as in man, the only seeing organ. The two physical front eyes developed later on in both brute and man, whose organ of physical sight was, at the commencement of the third race, in the same position as that of some of the plain vertebrata in our day, beneath an opaque skin. So please read it for yourselves as well, because it's a lot of material and it really does require that we do it over and over again just to understand it. Now we're doing this diagram here a little bit. In the fifth root race, in our first half of duration, on the now ascending arc, we're on this side as the student had shown that. Are on the midpoint or between the first and second races, falling downwards. First and second coming this way. Now we're 5.5 going that way. Okay? So we're calculating. As advised, we're calculating. In the second half of the first spiritual ethero-astral race, nascent mankind was devoid of the intellectual brain element, and on its descending line, as we are parallel to it on the ascending side as shown, therefore we are devoid of the spiritual element. This is what we are going to develop. And please remember, we are told Manasa period, or the fifth, we're crossing the meridian point, and the adjustment of the spirit and matter equilibrium has been reached. However, we are to be reminded that we're only in the fourth round, and Manas is a direct ray from the universal Mahat. A ray unimpeded by matter will be finally reached in the fifth. Okay, now we are told The third eye is indissolubly connected with karma. And we had talked about how it is activated, that it is petrified at this time, right? You all remember that. It's not functional. How is it then indissolubly connected with karma? Now, we are all theosophical students, and majority of the students think that their wisdom is higher than the rest of the humanity. Not so. And here is why. Buddhi or intuition without manas or pure reason is blind, because it can kill as well as give life. It's a blind force. It's the application of it that matters. So, and it requires an instrument, and it says, if it is not manas, it is kama. This is not mine, it comes from here. If it's not reason, desire. And if it is not intellectual, it's psychic. And a lot of us turn psychic, unfortunately. Before we become a spiritual, we give it up. So, these can combine any which way. All three are functional in all of us, to some degree or other, depending which one is on the ascendancy. So, the human being of today, we're told, is a mixture of a spiritual, intellectual, and psychic. But as the karma of the Atlantean days, where the psychic and kamic elements were greatly predominant in the majority of humanity at that time, this is when our heaviest karma was committed. So, no progress is in Buddhi. Why? Because it's already perfected. It's the spiritual aspect of us. We have perfected it. Whatever is perfected in us is just that. No progress. It can be added to, but it cannot be improved upon. What about kama, which really represents our psychic nature? In the highest, it is said, as well as the lowest, there is no intuition or reason in it. It lacks. Kama lacks intuition and reason. Reason and intuition is missing in kama. But it can be used. What does it represent? Reproductive aspect of nature. One is perfection. The other one is reproduction. What is this? It repeats itself. That's all it knows how to do. Whether it is good or bad, it will repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. That's all kama does, because that's its nature. Repetition. And what does it represent? And this is directly from here. It is the shadow, the image, the chaya of the Secret Doctrine, not my work. So, neither the purely spiritual or divine, nor purely material or elemental beings can progress. We're constantly reminded that if we give into our kamic nature, it produces what? Moral ruin. Psychic nature will produce moral ruin. Why? Because that's the elemental nature in us. We're giving our reasoning, intellectual, Buddhic powers to elemental beings when we get angry. What does that remember? Our emotions are all in the astral body. So we are giving our power of reason, our intellectual powers, our Buddhic powers to these diminutive elemental beings. Why? Because we have energized them over and over and over again, and that's what they know what to do. So she tells us it requires indomitable willpower to stop that path and initiate another one. What are we talking about here? In the physical body, nerves, the nervous system, What is it? The spinal cord to the brain. And all the peripheral nerves where we gather information work together as a unit, the brain being the correlative center of the human economy. So we have to remember that. So manas is the creative will, the principle of progress in the whole of nature and man. And the reincarnating ego is pure manas. Please remember, we are divine human beings. We have this divinity in us. But in physical existence, we have a double function of the mind. And here, the higher and the lower. And this is joined, but like in Antaskarana, another student had made a diagram of it. And the higher has to be invited. What is the higher? Your conscience. It tells you what not to do. It will never tell you what to do, because that choice, the freedom to choose, is the prerogative of humanity at this stage of development. So no true teacher will interfere with that process of choice making. So, and here we come to Atlantis again. When the egos awoke, it says, to the perception that the divine world does not constitute, though it includes the whole of nature, when we came in direct contact with the elemental world, the great majority of the incarnating egos made their spirituality and all their divine attributes and powers the handmaidens of their newly awakened physiological and psychic passions instead of the reverse. The sin here is not a sin, it's simply karma, was not using the powers and forces of the elemental world, but in misusing them. The tabernacle designed to contain a god was made a fane or temple of every spiritual iniquity. So this is where we made our karma. And here's the concluding statement. In the words of Paul, the whole creation groans in travail because of the iniquity of man, the incarnating ego. The conjunction with buddhi has been replaced by the conjunction with kama, and man is no more buddhi manas but kama manas, no more a divine but a human being crucified by his own karma. And this is from one of the masters, quote, "Woe to those who live without suffering. The stagnation and death is the future of all that vegetates without change. And how can there be any change for the better without proportionate suffering during the preceding stage? Is it not only those, this is a question, is it not only those who have learned the deceptive value of earthly hopes and the elusive allurements of external nature who are destined to solve the great problems of life, pain, and death? These are Master's words in the Secret Doctrine. Yet everywhere theosophists, shorn of the third eye, manas in conjunction with buddhi, fall victim, as in Atlantean days, to the elusive allurements of the psychic principles. They seek to escape the elemental beings and call that emancipation, or seek to acquire, as elemental beings do, good in quotation mark, and call that occultism. And this is another statement which must be said. Whether we say self-organization, self-discipline, or self-sacrifice boots little. What is of surpassing importance is that the only true theosophical association is the association of buddhi manas, alike in the individual and in any collection of individual egos. The first step in universal brotherhood is individual and personal. It is the will to reform oneself, devotion to the best interests of others, enlightened unselfishness. One single man can become a nucleus, a center, a seat of brotherhood, by his own will and effort. No number of men can become a nucleus either by the surrender of their will to another or others, or by any cultivation or refinement of the psychic nature. The first lesson in true occultism has to be learned first. True chalaship is an attitude of mind continuously maintained. Buddhimanas versus kamamanas. HPB and Judge, studying and applying, as well as promulgating the wisdom religion in all directions, worked as masters themselves must work to maintain in the body the union of Buddhimanas, worked to create a change in the Buddhimanas of the human race. Thank you. Yes.
So is that to say that kama manas is just a human condition?
Yes, it is. But we have to use it correctly. There is nothing wrong with it if we use it correctly. What we did in the Atlantean days is still here with us today. Because what is said that the freedom of the mind is bringing us in hordes. The Atlanteans are all reincarnating. But what are they? They're mischievous and cunning, because that comic element is still in the ascendancy in most of the generality of humanity today. If we use it that way, it is for personal gain. We just said Buddhimanas has been replaced by Kamamanas, and Kamamanas is personal. Personal, personal. Gain, power, what else? Well, look at our government. Look at the Wall Street. They stole the people's money and got away with it. I should not interject those personal, but you have to be aware as to what's going on around us, because humanity is a family. We express these comic principles in different ways, but it is always personal. So if a teacher comes and says, you have to pay this much money, you know that that is not the right teacher to start with, because no true teacher will charge money, because we're money oriented, we're power oriented, we're self-oriented. We want more, more, more. It's still there. Before, people wanted to be millionaires. Now people are billionaires. They want to become trillionaires or whatever the next step is. So that greed for personal stuff is there. So if we don't suppress it, choke it, and she says, step on its head and crush it. We have to crush it. Each one for himself. We just read it. The first step is individual and personal. The will, we have to activate the will to reform one's self.
And how does one do that in a kamamanas condition?
How do we change kamamanas into buddhimanas? Is that what the question is?
Essentially.
Okay. We come to this question very often. What is it that is necessary that we walk the paramitas by developing first love and charity? May I erase this? And not say. It's easy to say. I can express it. But what did we say at the beginning? That we're going to take these principles and use them in our daily life, and we're going to make them our own, and we're going to give it life. When it has life and it comes out of you, it becomes a living power, not words. A living power by doing it. Action. Action. What does this say? We are to forgive each other faults. Each one of us have faults, and the person who has the fault is very well aware of it, what it is that they have. They're working on it. We have to forgive them for it. As we expect the other person to forgive me for mine, I will extend the same courtesy to the other person and love them as they are. She tells us that this philosophy is not for the sinless, it is for those with sins. In other words, with karmic retribution, we have come to work on our karmic causes and effects. We created them. We must now use this opportunity to make better of it, each one for himself. So that's what that is. What is the second paramita? Shila, Kshanti, harmony. What's the other one? You see, these are all listed in this little book, Voice of the Silence. And memorize them. Put it in your heart, not in your head, in your heart. I had marked it, but unfortunately I didn't have any marker, and so I took my marker off. Now I don't know what page. Does anybody remember?
60.
60.
Maybe copy that.
I don't remember it anymore because I took the blue thing from there because somebody had asked me before and I don't remember. I thought it was 50 something. 52. Dana or Dana, the key of charity and love immortal. Shila, the key of harmony in word and act, the key that counterbalances the cause and the effect and leaves no further room for karmic action. Kshanti, patience, a sweet that naught can ruffle. And Viraga, indifference to pleasure and to pain. Illusion conquered, truth alone perceived. What exactly does? These are the first four, because the others are so exalted. Perhaps I thought if we just concentrate on the first four, and what the fifth is Virya, the dauntless energy that fights its way to the supernal truth. The supernal is the higher levels of the cosmos, out of the mire of life terrestrial. So we have to get the elusive element out of the eyesight, which is the first part we read today. Let's read that again. It says right here, having become indifferent to objects of perception, the pupil must seek out the Raja of the senses, the thought producer, he who awakes illusion. The mind is the great slayer of the real, that let the disciple slay the slayer. Now this is this play here again. Here's the lower mind with kama, lower, kama, this and this, and then the higher mind, which is the divine mind. Okay, and we said we have to activate the will. What power is this capitalized W? This is the volition of the ego. Volition. Of the ego. This will, this capital will. And it really is necessary, because what does the other will do? I had something to do. Never mind. I'll do it next time. Okay, bye. So, what was I going to say?
Activate the will in.
But will, in which direction?
Yes.
What are we talking about here? Altruism. Altruism. That's the key word, is altruism. Because without altruism, there is no brotherhood in the universe. Altruism. In our words, your concern is for the other. We just read it here. This is not a sentence. We must memorize it and put it here. The first step, where was that? Devotion to the best interests of others, enlightened unselfishness, is altruism. And all these parameters go hand in hand. What else is necessary here? Devotion to the higher self. when an opportunity comes and it is presented, in other words, you're asked to do some charity, don't react to it automatically. Sometimes it is necessary to say, what would my higher self want me to do in this case? Appeal to that conscience. This is the conscience I'm talking about. That little voice, it's always there. That little voice says, you know this is not right, don't do it, and you go ahead and do it anyway. Have you not had those occasions? This student has had that experience. I went and did it, and then I regretted doing it. But that regret doesn't do it. It's already done, and I have created karma, and then I have to face the effect. It comes right back to me. So, this is how we do it. And in the physical, when the anger comes, you say, I'm not giving in to you, elementals. This is biology. The student is biological, having studied biology. For instance, this is anger. And what's the other side? What's the opposite? Calm, quiet, peace. And up to this point, you have been energizing it. Electric. This is electric. These are photons. And it just, it's automatic, just like that. It's like this. It goes that way. Now, you're going to cut it off here. What does that require? Indomitable willpower. Indomitable willpower. It's not easy, because by the time I recognize that that was anger, it's already exhibited itself, and I'm in a pile of difficulty. So, you feel it coming, you have to stop it. Indomitable willpower. Here it is, it's there. You activate it, you put a stop here, and then you're going to activate that root. I am going to stay calm. I will not give in to it. You have to do it at first. Believe me, it takes that kind of effort. But in time, this becomes automatic. You have eliminated that, and what do the munis do? You cannot move them from their center. Munis, these are saints and people who are on the road to become perfected. So if we cannot give our will to someone else, we cannot get together and improve on our psychic nature, but each human being must make this change for themselves. And this is what HPB and Judge tried to do for us. Change the kamamanas into buddhimanas. By exertion of self-will, indomitable willpower, they stood straight. They would not bend to any demand from any corner of the universe that wanted to move them from that path, because that was their objective. They were representatives of the masters. They came and they delivered. Now, do you know how to turn that thing off, please? I think you press the button. Yes.